Do an exercise, take 2 minutes, at max 3 minutes, take 2 minutes, and create a poverty line basket of yourself. What you consider as poor, construct a PLB by yourself. अपने आप बनाओ. उठ भी जाएंगे तो इस कारण से हम रफ में बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है, मेन पेज पे बनाओ, शर्मा मत. Do an exercise, construct a poverty line basket by yourself. As in, what do you consider? When would you consider somebody as poor? तभी कुछ हो पाएगा. What are you waiting for? Present के नहीं, present ऐसे हाँ लिखो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, but just write something. For if you want to construct for one person, you want to construct for 5 persons in one household, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. So why not? I've given you a free hand. It's your choice what you want to include or what not. All right, anybody? Anybody would like to talk about their PLB? बोलो. हाँ? Nutrient rich food. How much? Nutrient rich food. What is nutrient rich food? What would you include in this? 25 calories is what you would get from the food. But what? From where would you get 25 calories? What should be there in food? हाँ तो यही तो एक्सरसाइज. और 2 मिनट मत देना. Take 2 minutes and come up with some specific basket. अरे फूड पे फोकस मत करो, बाकी चीजें भी हैं. क्यों नहीं ले सकते यार, लेकिन बता देना लमसम के अंदर क्या क्या चीजें हैं. हाँ, खर्चा तो लमसम में बताओगे. चलो बताओ फिर. फॉर फूड. हाँ, 3 times food. ओके, व्हाट एल्स? अरे ये सब चीजें मैंने बता दी थी यार. रेंट के ऊपर कितना खर्चा करोगे? 6,000 रुपये. चलो. और ट्रैवल. और कुछ? इंटरनेट. अब इंटरनेट के बारे में बताओ, बात मत करो भाई, बताओ इंटरनेट. क्या इंटरनेट क्या? मोबाइल रिचार्ज. मोबाइल रिचार्ज. चलो. मोबाइल रिचार्ज कितना? 250 रुपये. चलो. और मेडिसिन. चलो मेडिसिन के ऊपर. हाँ, मतलब जरूरी है कोई बीमार पड़े हर महीने? पर मंथ 500. चलो ठीक है, गुड. और एजुकेशन. एजुकेशन, प्राइमरी एजुकेशन. ठीक है, उसके ऊपर एजुकेशन. किस चीज में खर्चा लगेगा एजुकेशन में? स्टेशनरी. चलो. बुक्स. हाँ, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल फ्री है, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में. चलो, बच्चों की ड्रेस वगैरह फ्री है. इधर देख लो, शांत रहो. ड्रेस. ऑलराइट. कितना खर्चा एजुकेशन के ऊपर? चलो 1000 रुपीज पर मंथ. बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जाएंगे, चाहे गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में होंगे, जरूरी नहीं कि पैदल जाए, हो सकता है ऑटो से जाए. चलो. और एनीथिंग एल्स? हाँ, सेविंग्स. यार हम एक्सपेंडिचर लिख रहे हैं. एक्सपेंडिचर प्लस सेविंग बिकम्स इक्वल टू इनकम. एक्सेस टू ड्रिंकिंग वाटर. चलो गुड. ड्रिंकिंग वाटर. शेल्टर हो तो क्या हाउसिंग, सैनिटेशन, सैनिटेशन के ऊपर क्या खर्चा, किस चीज के लिए खर्चा, सैनिटाइजर के ऊपर खर्चा, बोलो, सोप डिटर्जेंट, गुड, सोप, डिटर्जेंट, शैम्पू, गुड, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, व्हाट एल्स, हाँ, क्लोथिंग हो तो क्या, चलो ठीक है, हाँ क्लोथिंग, हाँ हाँ चलो क्लोथिंग हो गया, और उसके सिवा कुछ और, अकॉर्डिंग टू सीजन, ठीक है चलो अकॉर्डिंग टू सीजन, और एनीथिंग एल्स एनीबॉडी वुड to spend money on during 1 month? We are talking about poverty line basket वैसे, but you can include certainly, why not? Which vehicle then? हाँ, बाइक, व्हीकल पे पेट्रोल का खर्चा, चलो, और एनीथिंग एल्स? दिमाग लगाओ भाई, मतलब नॉट ऑन एनीथिंग एल्स, बट यहाँ पे लिखा है एटलीस्ट इन चीजों के ऊपर, that what is it that we are trying to do? सवाल समझोगे तभी तो आ पाएगा. We are trying to construct a poverty line basket. We are trying to see that what is it that a household of 5 people should be spending their money on. Should, normative, your opinion, according to you, what should they spend their money on such that they would be considered as non-poor. Minimum किस चीज पे कितना खर्चा, मतलब क्या क्या चीजें परचेज करनी पड़ेगी, क्या उनकी कीमत होगी, what quantity, what items. This is what goes into constructing a poverty line basket and hence finding a poverty line. It can't be an arbitrary discussion. It can't be a casual discussion, because each and every rupee written here, each and every gram of something added here is going to make a lot of people poor or unpoor. So it has to be a well thought through exercise. Economists come up with a basket of goods and services and suggest that this, according to me, is that basket that a household must certainly consume for them to be considered as non-poor. Now, up until Lakdawala, we had Dandekar and Rath alag and Lakdawala. Up until Lakdawala, we had calorie-based poverty lines in which we had food component and some non-food component, which was basically transportation, housing, and clothing. ये non-food component था. We did not have, for example, health and education in this, drinking water or sanitation in this. Why did we not have? Is it that Lakdawala was a bad economist and did not think these things through? Why would situation of country be a factor in determining who is a poor person or not a poor person? In Argentina or Argentina, this country, in some African country, would access to drinking water, sanitation, education, health would they not be considered as determining whether the person is poor or not? So why should a country's situation be taken into account? One, and second, more importantly, we are not making anybody eligible or ineligible for any scheme's benefit. This is merely an academic exercise. Academic exercise में as much as possible ले सकते हैं. So why is it that Lakdawala was not taking these things? Because government is providing them. It's not as if Lakdawala did not think these things through or Dandekar did not think these things through. It was because it was assumed that government is providing these things. Government provides education free of cost, health free of cost in Sarkari hospitals. Government provides drinking water via MCD, sanitation via MCD, and as a result of that, government is incurring all these expenses. Government incurs these expenses, therefore you don't have to incur these expenses. Hence, in a monthly basket of goods and services that a household should be consuming, all these expenses, all these items would be there, but there would not be any expense on these items because assume that government is incurring these expenses. How do we assess poverty? What is the name of our survey? NHES, National Household Expenditure Survey. What is happening in that NHES? NSSO comes to you and asks questions. What are the items on which you are spending how much money on? So NSSO gets that idea, asks you certain questions. You tell that I spend this much on this, this much on this, this much on this, this much on this, and NSSO adds that up, finds out how much is the total expenditure that you are incurring, and compares that with the standard. Lakdawala said, for example, Lakdawala says, I want a household to be incurring, let's say 5,000 rupees per month, and your household expenditure is 7,000, hence you are non-poor. In 2005, we set up a new committee called as Tendulkar Committee. Tendulkar and Rangarajan, we study those committees together. Tendulkar and Rangarajan are, if I may use the word, radically different from older committees. Why are they different? Because Tendulkar and more specifically Rangarajan, they incorporate something that we call as behavioral expenses. We are moving our poverty line from being completely normative in nature to something called as behavioral in nature. Normative मतलब क्या हुआ? Opinion versus behavioral or towards behavioral. What is behavioral? According to me, what should you spend your money on? Versus what are you actually spending your money on? I have assumed that government is spending money on healthcare, education, drinking water, sanitation. As a result, I assume that you don't spend any money. So in my poverty line basket, I will have food component, non-food component, and in non-food I will have, let's say, health, I will have transportation, clothing, housing. जिनके ऊपर सरकार पैसा खर्च नहीं कर रही है. Versus I will observe what are you people spending your money on. I have NHES data. I will look at NHES data and see what do people who are considered as poor, what do they actually spend their money on. And by looking at those expenses, I will find out that people are actually spending their money on education, health, drinking water, sanitation, and many other things. Are you getting the point? One was my opinion as to what should you spend your money on. Second is observation from the factual data that I've collected, observing the data and looking at the data, seeing that what are poor people actually spending their money on. Now what I will do is I will incorporate even those expenses in my poverty line basket. My poverty line basket, which was first purely normative in nature, will now also incorporate these actual expenses that poor people incur. I observe those expenses, add them in my PLB, and that becomes a comprehensive PLB. This is what will be done by Tendulkar and Rangarajan. First, Tendulkar. In 2005, Tendulkar committee was set up, gave his recommendations in 2009. What does Tendulkar recommend? Tendulkar observes NHS data and sees that households are incurring expenses also on education, health, drinking water, sanitation. So to Lakdawala committee's recommendation, to Lakdawala national poverty line, to that national poverty line, had food and non-food. In the non-food part, he also added health, education, drinking water, and sanitation. These expenses add किए. कैसे add किए? Observe करके what are the poor people actually spending their money on. Is this clear? How much expense on health, education, drinking water, sanitation? This will be his normative expense. But the items on which poor are spending money, he observes these items from the NHS survey. He assesses that how much should they be spending on these items. As a result, he incorporates these items or these expenses also in his poverty line basket. Do poor people not incur expenditure on health as an out-of-pocket expenditure? Obviously they do incur. Not on education, obviously they do incur. Even though healthcare facilities are available free of cost to you in a government hospital, you're not going to wait for the government doctor to come or medicines to arrive in the government pharmacy to get those medicines. The patient will die till that point. So you do spend money out of pocket, out of your own pocket on these items. As I said, for example, auto in school, so you do spend money on those things. You do spend money on, let's say, getting some stationery for the children. So it's not as if the government school has to completely zero खर्चा education, you're going to spend some money. So Tendulkar incorporates those expenses in his poverty line basket. Hence, the idea of what should a poor person consume, that idea expands after Tendulkar. Tendulkar incorporates expenses by observing NHS data. The amount of expense is his normative expense, but he still observes the expense, he still observes the item and incorporates them in his poverty line basket. Is this clear? This is Tendulkar's poverty line. Tendulkar himself does not use the word behavioral, hence we also don't use the word behavioral for Tendulkar. Tendulkar's poverty line is also a normative poverty line. Yes, it was constructed after observing actual information from NHS, but still we categorize Tendulkar's poverty line as a normative poverty line. Why? Because Tendulkar's expenses on those items are still normative expenses. Tendulkar ने देखा कि all these items are there, but how much money should poor people be spending on them? He wrote down his own numbers there. Meaning according to me, what should the poor person spend? Therefore, Tendulkar's PL is also considered as a normative PL. Yes, it has elements of behavioral, but it is ultimately considered as normative in nature. When Tendulkar gave his recommendations in 2009, what do you think would have happened to poverty line? Would that have increased or decreased as compared to Lakdawala? Increased because यहाँ तो brand new tax expenditure आ गए हैं, apart from Lakdawala tax expenditure और आ गए हैं, plus other expenses वो भी increase हुए हैं. As a result, PL is expanding, that means poverty line would be increasing. Hence, estimate of number of poor people in the country would increase. Lakdawala का third recommendation था, same thing Tendulkar ने हुआ है. Tendulkar is increasing the constituent of the poverty line basket. As a result of that, poverty line will go up. As a result of that, estimates of people who are poor, that constitution is also going to go up. That did happen when Tendulkar gave his recommendation. Obviously, that did happen. But apart from that, there was a huge controversy because of Tendulkar, because of Tendulkar's recommendation. What was the controversy? Controversy was not as much as it turned out to be. When Tendulkar gave the recommendations, he said the price of his poverty line basket, Tendulkar's poverty line basket का जो price था, जो कि बन गई हमारी poverty line, this was 5,000 rupees for a household of 5 in 2009 per year, per month. 5,000 rupees for household of 5 at 2009's prices, एक महीने का per month. Now today it might seem very less to you कि 5,000 रुपए एक घर को एक महीने में खर्च करने तो कैसे सर्वाइव कर पाओगे, तो बिल्कुल गलत है. But this is 2009's prices, not today's prices. How do we update poverty line using inflation? We discussed this. Lakdawala recommendation. Lakdawala said that we should update poverty line using inflation number. If we update this poverty line, which is at 2009's prices, and calculate the comparative value of present, that is 2023, it comes out to be somewhere around 15,000 rupees. 15,000 रुपए at 2022's prices. तो 15,000 रुपए तो कम नहीं है. As in 15,000 rupees of expenditure for a household of 5 per month. हम poverty की बात कर रहे हैं. इसमें ये चीज हमको ध्यान रखना है. You have to remember this thing that one, this is consumption expenditure, not income. Second, this is not making anybody eligible or ineligible for any scheme. It is merely an academic exercise. And as far as academic exercises go, 15,000 rupees is a decent enough expenditure or cut off that we can consider. If you are spending less than 15,000, then you will be poor. If you are not even spending that, then you are not poor. So it is merely an academic exercise. That is also what we must remember. Plus, it is a consumption expenditure. So this value 5,000 rupees in 2009, this is not that low a value. But 2009, these were years when 24/7 news channels had come up. Social media was now rising like anything. So media, what it did was it took this number 5,000 rupees. This is household of 5 per month. 5,000 रुपए, इसको divide करो 5 से, मतलब per person, per month 30 से divide करो. अभी कितना निकल के आता है? 1,000 upon 30, which is around 33 rupees. 33 rupees per person per day consumption expenditure. Now 33 rupees is abysmally low. You can't get 3 times meal in 33 rupees in 2009. आज तो छोड़ दो, आपको 2009 में 3 समय का खाना 33 रुपए में, you can get meal for 33 rupees. And what is Tendulkar saying? Tendulkar says that my poverty line basket is even more expensive as compared to Lakdawala's basket, as meaning in 33 rupees, if I tell you 33 rupees per person per day consumption expenditure, and I tell you the consumption basket, which is housing, clothing, transportation, drinking water, sanitation, education, health, nobody is going to believe this number. So this is like making mockery of poor, that you spend 33 rupees per day, you'll be considered as non-poor. So media took this number, 33 rupees, and because of the 33 rupees, there was a lot of debate that went on in the country that the government is making mockery of poor. Reality was, government or Tendulkar never said 33 rupees. Tendulkar said 5,000 rupees for a household of 5 per month. You are living here away from your parents. How much money do you spend per month? Is your total expenditure per month at least 20,000 rupees, including rent? How much money do your parents or your family spend wherever they are living? Let's say you have a 4-person household, one of you is living here, 3 people living there. You'll be spending, let's say, 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees per month. Your parents will be spending. If you go and start living back with your parents, would your expenses be simply added up? Obviously not. Expenses would be shared. If you go and start living with your parents, the additional expenses that your family would be incurring would be hardly anything. केवल खाने के ऊपर खर्च आएगा, कुछ clothing के ऊपर आएगा, otherwise there would not be any additional expenditure. So when people are living together, expenses are shared. In 33 rupees, there is no element of this sharing. In 5,000, there is an element of sharing, as in complete sharing, because most biggest expense is generally the rental expense. This expense is shared. Cooking expense, food expense, all these expenses would be shared here. So 5,000 rupees is a decent enough number, but 33 rupees is a very, very low number. Because this number was what got propagated in the media. The government came on back foot. The government was not helped by many of the ministers or many of the members of the Congress party. They made some comments that were unbecoming of the party as a national party. As a result of that, the government came on back foot. The government came on back foot, and to firefight the situation, government set up the committee, Rangarajan committee. Rangarajan was kind of firefighter for the government. During our times, whenever the question was that who is heading this committee, we always used to mark Rangarajan if we did not know the answer. Generally, that would have been wrong because UPSC also knows everybody would mark Rangarajan. But yes, Rangarajan has headed many, many committees. During his tenure, he's still there, as in he's now 90 plus, no longer in active policy making. But during his active lifetime, he had chaired a number of committees. We'll talk about many committees of Rangarajan later on also. So one of the last committees that he headed was Committee on Poverty Line. The government constituted Rangarajan committee and asked Rangarajan that please suggest a new poverty line. Rangarajan looked at Tendulkar and saw that what else can I do? It already has everything that should be there. Meaning one, it has a very expensive food basket, non-food के अंदर सब कुछ है, drinking water, sanitation, education, health, हर चीज है, तो इसमें अंदर और क्या डालें? There is nothing more left for me to add in Tendulkar basket. But still, now that a committee was constituted, hence the committee had to come with something. So Rangarajan also came up with his own poverty line, which is very similar to Tendulkar's poverty line, but it is little bit more scientific in nature and better organized. अगर सिंपल भाषा में बोले तो Rangarajan's poverty line, Rangarajan had a better version of PowerPoint as compared to Tendulkar. Simple भाषा, but yes, that's not only the case. Rangarajan's poverty line is more comprehensive, more scientific as compared to Tendulkar. Let's see what Rangarajan's poverty line is. Tendulkar is a simple calorie-based poverty line, as Lakdawala. Tendulkar poverty को भी हम calorie-based ही बोलते हैं. He's simply expanding a non-food basket to include health, education, drinking water, and sanitation. Now let's see what is Rangarajan's poverty line. Rangarajan specifically uses the word normative and behavioral. Rangarajan what he says is my basket will consist of 2 parts, 2 components. There will be a normative component, meaning what according to me is a person should a person or a household be spending the money on for them to be considered as non-poor. Plus, what is it that the poor people are actually spending their money on, the behavioral component. So Rangarajan explicitly uses the word normative and behavioral. So he has 2 components to his PL. One is normative PL, and second part is behavioral PL. Normative, according to me, what should the poor person be spending their money on for them to be considered as non-poor? 2 components here: food component and non-food component. Food. Rangarajan says that we have been focusing on calories since long. Rangarajan says that we have been focusing on calories since long. Rangarajan looks at ICMR's recommendation. ICMR's recommendation on the basis of age and sex. A household of 5 people, generally the composition is grandmother, parents, and 2 children. On the basis of what has ICMR recommendation, according to age and sex of the person, Rangarajan comes up with food expenses which consist of calories, that is energy, fat, and protein. So Rangarajan bola nutrient-rich food. Rangarajan says that we should have this much requirement for calories, fat, and protein. As in not just 2,100 calories or 2,400 calories, we must have these things also in the food basket. That is food component. Non-food, Rangarajan writes down, like earlier, he writes down travel, housing, clothing, education, health, drinking water, clean drinking water, sanitation. He writes down these expenses as his non-food expenses. So he took Rangarajan's normative basket. And then what he does, he observes NHES data, and then he sees on what items and how much are poor people spending their money on. And based on that, he writes down his behavioral component. Behavioral part, for example, he writes down health, education, entertainment. None of you said alcohol in your poverty line basket. Would you include alcohol in your poverty line basket? I mean, when I gave you this task of making your poverty basket, you might have thought about including alcohol, let's say, but you would have rejected it saying that we are considering a poverty basket, meaning a person should not be spending money on alcohol for them to be considered as non-poor. तो पहले बाकी basic चीजों पर खर्चा करें, उसके बाद alcohol पर खर्चा करें. But if the fact is that the poor person or the poor household is spending money on alcohol, whatever amount of money you have, if you spend some part of that on alcohol, that means you have less remaining to be spent on these other items. If my poverty line basket, if my poverty line was only normative in nature, I would not have included alcohol or tobacco expenses. And let's say my poverty line comes out to be 9,000 rupees. My normative poverty line is 9,000 rupees. I go to you and ask few questions, ask what is it that you're spending your money on. You say, as in based on your responses, it is evaluated that you spend 10,000 rupees per month. My poverty line was 9,000 and you spend 10,000 rupees per month. You are poor or non-poor? My standard is 9,000 rupees and your actual expenditure is 10,000 rupees. Poor or non-poor? You are non-poor. But out of 10,000, you spend only 8,000 rupees on those items which are there in my poverty line basket. That means in reality, you should have been classified as poor. 1,000 rupees you are spending, let's say, on alcohol, entertainment, and tobacco, which are not part of my poverty line basket. Your total expenditure per month is 10,000. My poverty line is 9,000, and hence I classify you as non-poor. Whereas your expenditure on those items on which I want you to spend your money on is only 8,000. That means you should have been classified as poor. So therefore, what will I do is I will now add to my poverty line. जो मेरी non-Arubi poverty line है, उसमें I will add to that poverty line some expenses which you are actually incurring but are not yet part of my poverty line basket. Behavioral expenses. For example, by adding those behavioral expenses on, let's say, alcohol, entertainment, tobacco, from 9,000 now my poverty line becomes 11,000 rupees. That means according to me, you will be spending 11,000 rupees per month, which now includes normative things, meaning things on which I want you to spend money on, plus behavioral things on which you are actually spending your money on. Now my poverty line is 11,000. Now your expenditure is 10,000. Hence you will be classified now rightly as a poor person. This is what Rangarajan is doing. He's adding normative and behavioral component here. In behavioral part, he adds expenses such as health, education, entertainment, alcohol, tobacco, etc. For example, Rangarajan says, according to me, a household must be spending 500 rupees per month on education. Versus I observe that households are actually spending 1,000 rupees on education. I think you should be spending 500 versus households in this category are actually spending 1,000. So I add the remaining 500 as behavioral expense. Is this clear? According to me, I don't want you to spend money on alcohol or tobacco or entertainment, but you're actually spending, let's say, 200 rupees per month on alcohol, 100 on tobacco. You're actually spending these things. So now I write these expenses as part of my behavioral expenses. So this is Rangarajan's poverty line. Did everybody what is Rangarajan's PL? Tendulkar and Rangarajan. Tendulkar is still called as, he himself called it as, Tendulkar is still called as a normative PL because Tendulkar, the value of these expenses was what Tendulkar said that household should be incurring on. Tendulkar basically included more items in the non-food part. He expanded the non-food part by observing expenses that poor households were actually incurring. But he chose only a few of those expenses, not all of those expenses. That is, he did not choose, let's say, alcohol, entertainment, tobacco. At the same time, the value of expenses that he wrote down was still what he considered households should be spending their money on. Rangarajan goes beyond Tendulkar. Rangarajan actually incorporates expenses that poor households are incurring and their value. This is behavioral poverty line, as in plus behavioral poverty line. Tendulkar is still a normative poverty line. Is this clear to everybody? Fine. So, next line. Our official poverty line is सरकार जो poverty measure करती है, कौन सी poverty line लेके measure करती है? नहीं, कौन सी? तेंदुलकर की, रंगाराजन की, लकड़ा वाला की, कौन सी हमारी official poverty line है? Tendulkar's is still our official poverty line. Rangarajan gave the recommendation in 2012. Rangarajan's recommendations were not accepted. By that time, the controversy had died down, so government did not feel the need to accept Rangarajan's recommendation. Rangarajan's recommendations were not accepted. Tendulkar recommendations are what were accepted earlier, and we still persist with Tendulkar's recommendations only. In 2015, Niti Aayog was given this task कि तुम अपनी कोई नई poverty line बताओ. तो नीति आयोग ने यही बोला कि भाई poverty line Tendulkar ने जो बताई that is a good enough poverty line. We should persist with the same poverty line. So our poverty line today, official poverty line is Tendulkar's. It's not Rangarajan's. Why? Why is our official PL Tendulkar's PL, not Rangarajan's PL? Huh? नहीं. Why did government not accept Rangarajan's PL? Why did it accept Tendulkar's PL? It is merely an academic exercise. The number of poor बिल्कुल रंगाराजन में बढ़ जाएंगे, but that is not the reason. बहुत subjective है. Rangarajan is very subjective in nature. Those of you who are from science background and others also certainly would have heard about something called as Heisenberg uncertainty principle. सुना है? सुना तो होगा. क्या होता है बताना किसी को पता है? हाँ, simple चीज है, मैं बताता हूँ. Don't bother about this. When it comes to observing some particle, let's say electron or subatomic particles, you can measure either its position or its momentum accurately. You can't measure both things accurately at the same time. By the time you observe it, it would have changed its position. As a result of that, you can only estimate where it was, or you can estimate with accuracy where it was going. meaning उसका momentum क्या था. दोनों चीजें एक साथ नहीं कर सकते हो. When you go towards more and more accuracy, it becomes difficult to measure. This is what is basically happening here. When it comes to defining poverty, remember in our last class we discussed poverty is as comprehensively defined by World Bank. Pronounced deprivation of various aspects of well-being. Well-being के ऊपर बड़े सारे aspects हैं. उनके ऊपर if you are deprived, then you are considered to be as poor. When you start incorporating those definitions that deprived on this, deprived on that, incurring this much expenses, you are defining poverty in a more accurate manner. But it becomes difficult for you to measure poverty using those accurate measures. You are defining poverty in a more comprehensive, more accurate manner. That yes, a person should be incurring expenses on all these items, plus also incurs expenses of these items. Hence, this should be the manner of calculating poverty, of somebody to be poor or non-poor. But when it comes to this, when it comes to defining poverty like this, it becomes almost impossible to get data consistently from people. You are a poor person. You don't spend money on these items. You are a poor person. You spend too much money on these items. Can I assess who is poor or non-poor? It becomes impossible for me. मैं NSO का सर्वेयर हूं. मैं आपके पास गया सवाल पूछने के लिए कि आपने एक महीने में कितना किस चीज पर how much have you spent on various items? You said I spent money on entertainment but not on alcohol and tobacco. You said I spent money on these things but not on entertainment. It is now becoming difficult for me to assess how much expenditure on what item are you incurring in 1 month. As a result of that, I can't certainly say who is poor, who is non-poor. Even though my definition of poverty is becoming accurate, more precise definition, that I should incorporate these things. अच्छी बातें करना चाहिए चीज. But if I start incorporating these things, it becomes difficult for me to assess who is poor, who is not poor. So Rangarajan's poverty line, even though more accurately defined, comprehensively accurately defined, is difficult to assess. As a result of that, this was not accepted. Versus on the other hand, Tendulkar is a good enough balance between what should be poverty and how can you assess poverty. Tendulkar says that fine, we need to incorporate these expenses also. Education, health, drinking water, sanitation. We should incorporate these expenses. अब कितने expense करेंगे? हमको यहाँ पे normative number ही दिखना चाहिए. अलग-अलग household का देख के अलग-अलग नहीं लिख सकते हैं. Write down a normative number as to how much expenses should a household incur on this comprehensive basket. You come up with a uniform number, and then it becomes easy for you to assess who is poor, who is not poor. More accurately, you can do this exercise. And at the end of the day, again, you're not making anybody eligible or ineligible for some benefits. It is an academic exercise only. That means this exercise should be carried out in such a manner that you're at least able to accurately measure who is poor, who is not poor. Easily, Tendulkar becomes a better way of measuring poverty. Even though Rangarajan is more comprehensively, more accurately defined, but Tendulkar, even though normative in nature, it becomes accurate to measure. Hence, we still persist with Tendulkar only. Tendulkar is our official PL. Is it clear? देखो, लकड़ा वाला PL से लिखा था हमको. लकड़ा वाला 1993. Right now. देखो, 3 suggestions, recommendations. 1, 2, 3. Constructed state-specific PLBs, PLs. Suggested an increase in HCR. Tendulkar, HES. From the NHES. Even now, draw this. बोलो. Recommendations, recos. According to ICMR recommendations, reco. Normative and behavioral. Normative में food and non-food. Food में calories, protein and fat. According to ICMR recommendations based on age, sex. Non-food में transport, health, education, clothing, water, sanitation, etc. Behavioral में health, education, alcohol, entertainment. ... Rangarajan's PL. Rangarajan's PL was comprehensive. Rangarajan's PL was comprehensive, but is difficult to assess. And hence access nahi, assess, EWS, difficult to assess, and hence our official PL is Tendulkar's. Our official PL is Tendulkar's. Next paragraph लिखो. Tendulkar and Rangarajan also introduced. Modifications in the manner of data collection. For improvement of accuracy. So they modified the recall period / reference period. Bracket में RP. They modified the recall period / reference period. Bracket में RP. So items with a high frequency of consumption. Such as food were given a shorter recall period. Whereas less frequently consumed items were given a longer RP. So Tendulkar changed uniform RP, bracket में URP. Tendulkar changed uniform RP, URP to mixed RP, bracket में MRP. So Rangarajan further modified it to modified MRP, bracket में MMRP. Modified MRP, bracket में MMRP. Modified mixed RP. Modified MRP, bracket में MMRP. क्या होता है RP? क्या है? रेफरेंस पीरियड क्या क्या टर्म लिखी है यूनिफॉर्म आरपी मिक्स्ड आरपी मॉडिफाइड मिक्स्ड आरपी रीड द फर्स्ट लाइन क्या है एज इन तेंदुलकर रंगराजन व्हाट डिड दे डू modified the manner of statistics collection for improvement of their accuracy. What is this reference period? I am an NSO surveyor. I come to you and ask some questions. What is it that I have to ask question on? How much money are you spending? Because poverty line is based on your expenditure. So I will ask how much money are you spending on health, education, food, atta, dal, chawal, clothing, housing, rent. I have to ask these questions. When I ask you this question, how much money are you spending or how much money did you spend? Do I not have to give some reference period also? How much money did you spend in last 1 month or last 1 week or last 1 year? That is the reference period, the time period for which I am asking you to recall your expenses. My question pertains to certain time period. That is called as reference or recall period. Okay. If I ask you how much money do you spend on food in last 1 year versus in last 1 week, which response will be more accurate? 1 week or 1 year? 1 week. Why? That 52. That is what you are going to do. That is going to either overestimate or underestimate your expense. It is not going to be accurate expense. Yeah? Items that have a high frequency of consumption, consume more frequently. It is better that you give the responder a smaller reference period because then the response will be more accurate. How much have you spent on shoes? When will your response be more accurate on chappal? In last 1 year or last 1 week? That accurate होगा. Chappal का obviously not. You purchase them let's say once a year. These are items of low frequency of consumption. Low frequency consumption items, their response will be accurate when you give them a longer recall period. How much money have you spent on mobile phone recharge? No, that probably last 1 month, but on a mobile phone last 1 year. That is a more accurate way of assessing how much money have you spent. So items that are of low frequency consumption, they are given a longer recall period. Items that are high frequency consumption, they are given a short recall period for more accurate collection of data. But as we just saw, with more accuracy comes more complications or not. Now when I go to a person and ask questions, I'm going to ask them questions with respect to different items, different recall periods. And if a person goes to you and asks how much money have you spent, poverty line मेरी किस basis पे है? Expenditure कितने टाइम का? Monthly expenditure पे poverty line. Versus in order to improve accuracy of your data, what am I doing? I'm asking you, I'm giving you 2 different recall periods. Earlier it was uniform recall period, meaning just 1 recall period. I gave you a time of 6 months earlier. पहले था RP था 6 महीने का था कि पिछले 6 महीने में last 6 months how much money have you spent? Then comes Tendulkar modifies it to a mixed recall period. Tendulkar says that now I'll give you 2 recall periods, 1 month and 6 month recall period. Item of low frequency 1 month में बताओ, item of high frequency 6 महीने में बताओ. Then comes Rangarajan reduces 3 recall periods, 1 month, 6 month and 1 year. So you will tell me how much money you spent on clothing in last 1 year or in last 6 months, on some items in last 1 year, on some items in last 1 week. I will have to bring down all those expenses into 1 month or not for you to assess for me to assess the poverty. क्योंकि poverty का expenditure है, poverty basket पे वो मैंने 1 महीने का बनाया हुआ है. How much money do I want you to spend in 1 month? Not behavable. Versus information that I collect from you that is for 1 month, 6 months and 12 months. Meaning I will have to condense those expenses into 1 month expenses. Only then I can compare your 1 month expense with my poverty 1 month expense. More the recall periods, more accurately am I collecting data. But at the same time, it is becoming difficult for me to actually assess the poverty. If I convert that 12 months into 1 month expense, I will lose that accuracy. So hence, we don't use analysis scale. We use Tendulkar scale. We discussed the last NHS का हुआ था. We discussed it today itself, but yes, I tell you at this moment only. Our last official poverty estimates are from 2012. In 2012, we carried out our NHS, and in that NHS, we measured poverty in the country. Next NHS was supposed to be carried out in 2017. हर 5 साल में होगा. So it was carried out in 2017, but the finding of it was rejected by the government. Why? It's not merely because there is a number of people who were increasing. It is also because it is becoming impossible for you to calculate the data accurately, to collect the data accurately. And so surveyor, he is going to people and asking 3 different questions and giving them 3 different recall periods. And then from those recall periods, you have to condense the data into one common recall period. So it is now becoming difficult. As a result of that, the 2017 NHS was rejected. The next NHS supposed to be carried out in 2022 is right now being carried out. By the time you are writing prelims, certainly by the time poverty estimates will be out. As an official poverty estimates will be out. So please keep an eye on that. Okay? So this is about Rangarajan. These are our official poverty lines. Clear to everybody? So Pakistan में Tendulkar is our official PL. Rangarajan is a more comprehensive but difficult to measure PL. Tendulkar is what you have to remember. Is this clear all? The concept of RP is clear, recall period. Why did Tendulkar introduce a mixed recall period and why did Rangarajan introduce a modified mixed recall period? To improve accuracy of statistics collection. Clear? Last point before we move ahead. If you have paid attention to last 5 minutes, good for you because questions with respect to accuracy of data collection are being asked in exam very frequently. Tendulkar and Rangarajan did this change RP as in URP to MRP and MMRP on the recommendations of an American professor, Angus Deaton. Angus Deaton has done all his experiments, has done all his research, data collection, all those things with respect to improvement of accuracy of the government. Why are accurate statistics important for the government? Because if you have accurate data, only then you can make a good policy. So Angus Deaton has spent all his life on this thing. In 2016, he was awarded Nobel Prize for this. Nobel Prize. In 2016, when he was awarded Nobel Prize, question was asked with respect to importance of accuracy of data. Even Angus Deaton को क्यों मिला Nobel Prize? वो economics का था, economics option का था. But question on importance of data collection, accuracy of data collection was asked in GS paper 1, GS paper 3, economics option, PubAd option, geography option, sociology option. These are all options that I know of. Plus apart from that, GS 1 and 3 regarding importance of accurate statistics, accurate data for the government. And since that year, they have continued to ask this question in mains. This was asked this year as well. How do we measure unemployment in the country? How can unemployment estimates be accurately assessed? So accuracy of data collection, very important topic. They asked it last year also, last year, when they asked how did we measure GDP before 2015 and what changed in 2015. That was also to improve accuracy of data collection. So accuracy of data is a very important topic from your main point of view. They have been asking questions with respect to this. ठीक है? ठीक है? अब अगली बार से हम ये चीज देखेंगे ना, accuracy की बात तो ध्यान देना अगली बार. URP, MMRP, MRP सबको clear है? Fine? Okay. The next thing that we will do is international poverty lines. We'll discuss all these national PLs from Gandhi to Rangarajan. Now we'll be doing international PLs. Here we'll discuss 2 poverty lines. We'll discuss one World Bank, जो कि बहुत ही आसान है. World Bank's PL. And second we'll discuss multidimensional PL. ये देखेंगे इंटरनेशनल पोर्टल में वर्ल्ड बैंक पोर्टल पहले देख लेते हैं. वर्ल्ड बैंक पोर्टल है बहुत ही आसान है. इधर देखो देखना बाद में दिखाऊंगा. In our international poverty line, year 1 that we will see World Bank's poverty line and multidimensional poverty. Let's look at World Bank's poverty line. World Bank's PL is very easy. It is also a consumption expenditure based PL. And we have seen all the CE based PL, right? All these poverty lines are consumption expenditure based poverty line. So what would World Bank do? World Bank will have its own economists. Those economists will come up with their own poverty line basket, find out the price of the poverty line basket, and simply say that any person should be able to afford this particular basket. And hence, based on consumption expenditure required, World Bank will come up with the poverty line, right? How does World Bank calculate poverty line? World Bank calculates poverty line on the basis of income groups of country. What it does is it divides countries into 4 income groups. Poverty line basket in America versus that in India is going to be same or different. The concept of PLB, what should a person be actually spending their money on? So PLB in India versus concept of basic dignity in India versus that in US is going to be vastly different. So World Bank what it will do is it will divide it into 4 broad groups, 3 groups or 4 specific groups. It divides countries on the basis of average incomes. Average incomes. बेसिकली इस चीज को बोलते हैं जीएनआई पर कैपिटा। अभी के लिए मत समझो इसको, विल डिस्कस, आई एम श्योर मेनी ऑफ यू हैव दिस जीएनआई पर कैपिटा, जीएनआई ग्रॉस नेशनल इनकम पर कैपिटा मींस पर पर्सन। अभी के लिए इसको चिंता मत करो, विल डिस्कस इन आवर एनआई टॉपिक। एवरेज इनकम मीनिंग ऑन एवरेज हाउ मच इनकम डज ईच पर्सन हैव। दिस क्लास एवरी पर्सन हैज डिफरेंट लेवल ऑफ इनकम। इस क्लास की टोटल इनकम मिला के 1 करोड़ रुपए है, एंड देयर आर 100 people in this class, that means one person on average earns 1 lakh rupees, that is average income. So on the basis of average income of the population, World Bank divides countries into 3 broad groups or 4 specific groups: low income countries, middle income countries, and high income countries, and middle into 2 parts: high middle income and low middle income. ये 4 ग्रुप्स हैं। ये जो डिवीजंस हैं कंट्रीज की, these divisions they are dynamic, they are not static. You don't need to remember these divisions, please don't spend your precious brain cells on remembering these things. They keep on changing. Right now the division is almost this: LIC and LMIC division लगभग $1200 का है, LMIC and HMIC is around $6000, and this is $12000. A country where average incomes are less than 1200 is low income country, between 1200 to 6000 is low. ये exact number नहीं है, change होते रहते हैं पूरे टाइम. A country whose average incomes are between this is LMIC, between this is HMIC, and above this $1200 is LIC country. So World Bank comes up with poverty line baskets and therefore poverty lines for these 4 groups of countries. For LICs the poverty line किसके ऊपर है? Poverty line I'm going to write, which is consumption expenditure per person per day at 2011's price. So कोई side items clear है नहीं? Consumption expenditure meaning we're not talking about income, how much money you spend, meaning what is the poverty basket cost per person per day, not on household, not on monthly basis, on an average how much should one person spend in one day at 2011's price, meaning not today's price. If you have to calculate today's price, what would we do? Inflation, we simply increase the value by the rate of inflation, then we calculate the current value. तो मुझे 11 में उस basket का price, तो price of this basket is 2011, that's what we put right here. Low income countries the poverty line is $1.9, LMIC poverty line is $3.2, HMIC poverty line is around $6, HIC poverty line is around $11. ये हमारी वर्ल्ड बैंक की poverty lines है. World Bank's poverty line on the basis of consumption expenditure per person per day. A person in a low income country must be spending at least $1.9 per day for him to be considered as non-poor. This is what World Bank's poverty line is. Absolutely correct. This poverty line $1.9, this is the one that is relatively more important for us. This is also called as EPL, extreme poverty line. The poverty line of low income countries is also called as extreme poverty line. Now it's quite obviously why would it be called extreme poverty line. A person in US would be considered as poor when would a person in US be considered as poor? When you are not spending $11. तो income है $11 खर्च, if you are not able to spend $11 per day, one person, then you are considered as poor in US, right? Anybody spending $10 is poor in US, spending 9 is poor in US, spending 8 is poor in US. There may be some person in US who is not even able to spend $1.5, meaning there would be some person in US spending $1.5 who is not just poor in US, but if somehow he is transported to this country, he will be poor in that country as well. A person spending $10 in US is poor, but the person spending $10 in LIC would probably be among the top 1% people. But person spending $1.5 is poor not just in US, not just in your country, but also in the poorest of poor countries. Hence, you are facing what is called as extreme poverty. So this is called as extreme poverty, EPL. So EPL. EPL is important because EPL forms an objective or target in various developmental goals. I'm sure everybody has heard about sustainable development goals, SDGs. Before that, उससे पहले क्या थे? MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. What were these MDGs? What are these SDGs? Important है, ये चीज़ याद रखनी है. MDGs in 1980s, World Bank calls up a meeting of country. World Bank calls a meeting of country. World Bank says that, look, you people have grown, all these countries have grown at a fast pace in the last 2-3 decades, but the fruits of growth have not been equitably distributed. Economies have grown, people's incomes have grown, but developmental aspect, well-being, various aspects of well-being, they have not improved. Incomes have improved, but let's say access to health, education, drinking water, sanitation, these things have not improved. So we need to make development comprehensive. We need to ensure that the fruits of growth also percolate down to other aspects of well-being, not just income aspect. So for that, what we'll do is we'll set target for ourselves. When we enter this new millennium, the year 2000, when we enter this new millennium, we are going to set these targets for ourselves called as Millennium Development Goals. So in 1990, World Bank comes up with these goals called as MDGs. All countries were given some targets to be achieved in 15 years after we entered new millennium. That is between the year 2000 and 2015. In 1990, you set the goals to be met in the period between the year 2000 and 2015. So here these are MDGs. So we had 7 MDGs, and within those 7 MDGs, we had a total of 14 targets. Let's say MDG, we had MDGs with respect to poverty, MDGs with respect to health, education, drinking water, etc. MDGs. So MDGs 1 was with respect to poverty, और poverty का हमारा पहला ही goal था to half the incidence of people living in extreme poverty. Meaning, whatever be the extreme poverty in your country, whatever number of people are living there, in the next 15 years, reduce the number to half. Is it clear? There will be some people in extreme poverty in US. जो भी देश होगा उसको आधा करना है, 15 साल हर एक country को set targets दिए गए थे. Half infant mortality rate, half maternal mortality rate, increase the access to medicines for let's say AIDS and other preventable diseases. तो इस टाइप से other disease because people should not die. So this type इस टाइप से हमारे पास total 7 MDGs थे और हमारे पास total 14 targets थे. So these are MDGs. 2015 जा चुका है, 10 साल पहले लगभग. UPSC has asked several questions on MDGs को पूछा जा चुका है. India's performance, what MDG billings been, सब चीजें several times. That is not relevant for us. In 2010, this time UNDP, earlier it was World Bank, this time it was UNDP that took the lead. UNDP is everybody knows UNDP took the lead, and UNDP said that this time again we are going to formulate some goals for ourselves after MDGs end. So in 2012 they came up with new goals called as SDGs, gave those goals to all the countries to be met between the year 2015 and 2030. कितने SDGs हैं? 17 targets कितने हैं? 169 targets हैं. So we have 17 goals with a total of 169 targets. तो याद नहीं कर सकते 169 targets, लेकिन 17 goals जरूर याद करने हैं. Please make sure that you have complete memorization of these 17 goals. अगर कहीं पे तुमको अपने brain cells लगाने हैं तो यहाँ पे लगाओ, इस चीज को याद करो. Use SDGs reference in all your answers. Don't hesitate. एग्जाम में क्या लगेगा मैं आंसर SDG लिख रहा हूँ. Use SDGs in all your answers. 17 SDGs, 17 SDGs, they cover almost everything, right? So use remember SDGs and use them in your answers. Let's say whatever, it will enrich your answer. SDG 1.1 is the last question on SDGs specifically in the exam, that how will doing this enhance attainment of SDG 8. इस तरह से सवाल पूछा गया है. SDG 1.1 क्या है? Elimination of extreme poverty. Okay, extreme poverty is poverty of low income countries. Eliminate extreme poverty from the world. In India there are people living in extreme poverty. Where does they lie in this basket? India is a low income or no middle income country. Low middle income country. That means India's poverty line according to World Bank is $3.2. You are not that concerned with $3.2. You are concerned with $1.9 extreme poverty. That there should not be any person living in India in extreme poverty by 2030. So extreme poverty measured like this. Is this clear? So EPL becomes our goal. Extreme poverty becomes our goal. Absolutely clear everyone. ये World Bank की poverty line है. देखो. International PL, और number 1 लिखो World Bank's PL. Countries it divides countries on the GNIPC. देखो GNIPC. PC देखो PC. It divides countries on the basis of GNIPC bracket में average income. 3 broad, 4 specific groups. 3 broad, 4 specific groups. The poverty line is a group specific poverty line. The poverty line is a group specific poverty line. Reflecting the poverty line is a group specific poverty line reflecting the standards of living. Reflecting the standards of living. And hence reflecting the standards of living, and hence the PLB required in a specific group. The PL be required in a specific group. Hello, please draw G9PC. $1,200, $6,000, $12,000. Poverty lines are नीचे जो करो 1.9, 3.2, 6 and 11. 1.9, 3.2, 6, 11. जो poverty line लिखोगे उसमें जो लिखना ऊपर PP-PD CE at 2011 price. PP-PD CE at 2011 price. Done? I know. The PL of the LICs, the PL of the low income countries, the PL of the low income countries bracket में LICs, the poverty line of the low income countries bracket में LICs is also known as EPL. Is also known as EPL bracket में extreme poverty line. Simply extreme PL. This is so. This is so. As a person. This is so. As a person. This is so. As a person. In some other country. Unable to spend. This is so. As a person in some other country, unable to spend even $1.9. Even $1.9 would not just be poor. Would not just be poor in his country of residence. Would not just be poor in his country of residence, but also in an LIC. So EPL forms the target. EPL forms the basis of targets. EPL forms the basis of target under various developmental goals such as SDGs. EPL forms the basis of targets under various developmental goals such as SDGs. Bracket में SDG 1.1, elimination of SDG 1.1 dash elimination of extreme poverty by 2030. SDG 1.1, elimination of extreme poverty by 2030. ठीक है? क्लियर? चलो पेन नीचे रखो, देखो. World Bank clear everyone? World Bank poverty line. All right. We have World Bank poverty line, and this is denominated in dollars. How would World Bank measure poverty in India using this poverty line? India is, let's say, LMIC, or if World Bank has to measure EPL in India, extreme poverty in India, it will use $1.9. It will collect data from people because it is based on consumption expenditure. So World Bank will carry out its own survey, go to people and ask what is consumption expenditure. People spend money in India in rupees versus the standard is in dollars. That means it has to be converted or not. How will you convert this dollars into rupees? Using exchange rate. I'm sure everybody has heard about the exchange rate. So what is the current exchange rate? Around 80 rupees, right? So you multiply 1.9 with 80 and come up with the rupee denominated poverty line. This is dollar, and then convert it to rupees by multiplying by exchange rate. Clear to everybody? So ऐसे नहीं करते हैं. This is not what we do to convert dollar into rupees exchange rate, as in dollar into rupee based poverty line. What is exchange rate? We'll discuss later in the class of external sector. Exchange rate is simply the price of one currency in units of the currency. You have rupees with you and you want $1. You want to go abroad, and because you have to spend dollars there, you have to convert your money in rupees into dollars. So you go to some exchange counter here in Goldman or some bank, offer your rupees, and they will give you dollars in return. How much rupees are they asking from you to give you $1? That is what exchange rate basically is. That is what is reported in the newspaper. That is what basically 85 rupees answer. That is what exchange rate is. Is your purpose here to purchase $1.9, or your purpose here is to purchase the basket that $1.9 purchases? A or B? Realize करो इसके उत्तर तुम्हें बताइए. Purpose here is not to buy $1.9. Purpose is not to go and purchase $1.9 from the market. Purpose is this $1.9 is consumption expenditure. This $1.9 it purchases some basket of goods and services. Objective is that can you buy that goods and services in India? Those goods and services in India. The value of that basket in dollars, meaning in USA, is $1.9. उस basket को खरीदने में अमेरिका में $1.9 सकते हैं. Same basket, how much does it cost to purchase in India? It is not necessarily going to be 1.9 into 80 rupees. It's going to be something else. So how much do you need to purchase that basket? This is what you need. You don't need to purchase $1.9. Is the problem statement clear to everyone? Now how do we convert 1.9 into the rupee equivalent? We use something else called as PPP exchange rates. The concept of PPP, purchasing power parity. PP-PD per person per day versus now we are using it called as PPP, purchasing power parity. Let's understand this concept of PPP. Let's pause the discussion about it for some time. Understand the concept of what is PPP, purchasing power parity क्या होता है. राजेंद्र में एप्पल की कॉस्ट कितनी है? How much do apples cost per kg? एप्पल की कीमत कितनी होगी यहाँ पे? खरीदते नहीं होते मैं 200 के आसपास होगा. 200 rupees per kg would be cost of apples or on that would be cost. Let's say you come from Panipat. What would be cost of apples in Panipat? हाँ? 80 रुपए के आसपास होगा, 80 rupees. So 80 rupees per kg, same quality apple, same Kashmiri apple or Shimla apple, same apple in Panipat costs let's say 80 rupees per kg and it costs 120 rupees or it costs 4 rupees in Rajendra. I'm sure the cost of transportation is not 100 rupees per kg. It would be very inefficient transportation otherwise. Why is it that apples cost more here as compared to Panipat? Demand supply. There's something else at play apart from demand and supply. You have maid at your home in Rajendra. Some person will be coming and cleaning your house, cleaning your room. Let's say what a cook normally charges. Let's say you come from Hapur or Meerut or Ghaziabad or Rohtak. You come from these places. How much do you think would a cook charge at these places? Much less or not? Or a maid charge at these places? Much less or not? Same set of services being provided by a person. Same set of goods being purchased by you at one place versus other place. There's a drastic difference in price. Standards of living at different places explain the differences in these prices because people can afford to pay more here. Hence, the supplier, the seller can afford to charge more here. Versus at other place, people can't afford to pay that much. Hence, the supplier charges less. Standards of living. The same problem, the same fact. Apples cost 200 rupees here versus 120 rupees at some other place. The same statement I will state in another way now. Or let's say your maid charges 2000 rupees here versus the maid charges 15 rupees at some other place. Same statement, let me state in another way. Let's consider apples. What 200 rupees buys in Rajendra Nagar, 120 rupees buys in Panipat. The buying power, the purchasing power of 200 rupees in Rajendra Nagar is equivalent to the purchasing power of 120 rupees in Panipat. So समझ क्या है? Purchasing power, parity मतलब equality, equal. The purchasing power of some amount at one place is equal to purchasing power of some other amount at some other place. Purchasing power, the same good is being purchased, the same service is being bought for different prices. Same good or service being purchased at different prices. Purchasing power of different amounts is equal to different places. Is this clear to everyone? The concept of purchasing power. Let's take this concept international. India में तो yes, it is standard of living that explains the differences, but internationally also it would be standard of living that would explain the differences. Cost of apples in India versus in USA. Now when I say in India, it means some representative place of India. Let's say Delhi only. Delhi represents India. So cost of apples in India 200 rupees per kg versus cost of apples in USA, let's say $5 per kg. Meaning what 200 rupees buys in India, $5 buys the same amount in USA. Purchasing power of 200 rupees is equal to $5 or not. That means on a unitary basis, $1 purchasing power is equal to 40 rupees. $1 value market price exchange rate is 80 rupees versus on a purchasing power basis, what $1 buys in USA, 40 rupees buys in India, or what $5 buys in USA, 200 rupees buys in India. Let's take this to Apple as in phone wala Apple. One iPhone 15 cost 1,000 rupees in USA, $1,000 in USA versus same phone cost 1.5 lakh rupees in India. So purchasing power of 1.5 lakh rupees is equal to purchasing power of $1,000. So $1,000 की purchasing power दोनों एक iPhone 15 खरीद रहे हैं. $1,000 purchasing power is equal to 1.5 lakhs purchasing power, or on a unitary basis $1 purchasing power is equal to 150 rupees unitary basis के ऊपर. So depending upon which good are you considering, there will be some purchasing power parity exchange rate between the two currencies. If it is let's say apples, then $1 purchasing power is equal to 40 rupees. If it is apple, then $1 purchasing power is equal to 150 rupees. Right? What we can do is we can construct some basket of goods and services. We can find out how much that basket costs in USA, how much that basket costs in India. For example, not a Power basket. Let's construct a basket that is required to live a middle class life. Average American, average Indian. एक एवरेज अमेरिकन कुछ बास्केट पे खर्चा कर रहा होगा, पेट्रोल डीजल के ऊपर, फूड कुकिंग फ्यूल के ऊपर, हाउसिंग, क्लोथिंग, रेंट, इंटरनेट, ऑल दी सर्विस. एवरेज अमेरिकन, नॉट अ पुअर अमेरिकन, एवरेज अमेरिकन. Similarly, average Indian, let's say I'm an average Indian, I will have some basket of goods and services that I'm spending my money on. I spend, let's say, 30,000 rupees per month. An average American spends, let's say, $2,000 per month. Let's say $2,000 spent in America allows a person to live an average lifestyle. 30,000 rupees spent in India allows a person to live an average lifestyle. That means on a purchasing power parity basis, average lifestyles $2,000 is equal to 30,000 rupees. अब मैंने यहाँ पे एक गुड नहीं देखा. अब मेरे बास्केट में there are many goods. There would be apples plus many other goods would be there. So on an average, what $2,000 buys in USA, 3,000 rupees buys in India. That means on a unit basis, I can say that $1 value is equal to 15 rupees. Is it clear? Purchasing power value. This is called as purchasing power parity based exchange rate, PPP based exchange rate. We do an elaborate exercise to calculate PPP based exchange rate. We find out what is the PPP based exchange rate between two countries, that is two currencies, and then we use that PPP exchange rate to convert this dollar value into rupee value or whatever domestic currency values. Our objective is not to purchase $1.9, but it is to purchase that basket. That basket costs $1.9 in USA, 3.2 in USA, $6 in USA, whatever. How much would that basket cost in a country? For that, you use not the nominal exchange rate, जिसको बोलते हैं बाद में देखेंगे. We use PPP based exchange rate, purchasing power parity based exchange rate. Clear to all? सबको समझ में PPP क्या है? अब PPP का concept मैं बाद में नहीं बताऊंगा. When we discuss exchange rate, I'll not discuss the concept of PPP. I'll discuss nominal. वो part में obviously discuss करूंगा, but not PPP part. ठीक है? Clear? बोलो. Standards would be, why would standard and cost be different? You have to incur some cost to afford a standard of living. So I have a standard of living that comes at a cost. Okay, so cost leads to standard of living. All right, right now, Sama करके लिखो. Sama can write down. To convert the dollar denominated poverty line. To convert the dollar denominated poverty line into domestic currency unit. Bracket में DCU. We use the purchasing power parity bracket में PPP in order to convert the dollar denominated poverty line into domestic currency unit bracket में DCU. Domestic currency unit DCU, we use purchasing power parity bracket में PPP based exchange rates. PPP based exchange rates. So these XRs exchange with XR. These XRs denote. XR में I meant capital X and R, अगर तुमको X की याद आ रही है तो X लिख सकते हो. These XRs क्या बोला मैंने? These XRs denote how much would be required to purchase a similar basket of goods and services. To purchase a similar basket of these XRs denote how much would be required to purchase a similar basket of goods and services in different currencies. So for example, to afford an average lifestyle, or middle class lifestyle, to afford a middle class lifestyle, an American spends $2,000 per month, whereas an Indian spends 40,000 rupees per month. Whereas an Indian spends 40,000 rupees, you give the top just bracket, but I'm example. An Indian spends 40,000 rupees per month. Dash as such, the purchasing power of $2,000 purchasing power of $2,000 rupees in dollars. Purchasing power of $2,000 is equivalent to that of 40,000 rupees. Or that of 1 rupee, or that of $1, or that of $1, or that of $1 is equal to or that of $1 is equal to 20 rupees. ठीक है? Clear? तो देख रहे हैं. देखने के बाद डिस्कस मल्टीडाइमेंशनल पॉवर्टी, and then we discuss India's problems of poverty. Right? चलो. Questions? सोच लो क्या पूछना. But about Hashim and Saxena committee. Hashim Saxena committee is not a poverty line committee. It's a committee that recommended what should be the criteria of making somebody a beneficiary of scheme. Great that you read from the material, but there is not nothing for me to talk about that committee. As in there are आपने इसके सिवाय फिर वहाँ पे आपने अच्छा Hashim and Saxena committee भी आपने देखी होगी. Plus you would also come across something called as NCES. SECC, socio-economic and caste census, would have come across SECC also. So please refer to those things from the material. There is nothing for us to cover about them in any class. Good that you are referring. You should certainly refer, but refer them. We are concerned about these things. Fine.